I am 30 years old and a single mother to Sol, my 2-year-old daughter. My pregnancy was unplanned. For 7 months, I had a no strings attached relationship with her father, whom we will call J97, who was in his 30s. He lived in another state but traveled to my city monthly for work. It was during one of those visits that we met at a bar and immediately hit it off. When I found out I was pregnant, we discussed our options, but I ultimately decided to have the baby. J97 wanted to be part of her life, so we planned to raise her together, not as a couple, but as co-parents. However, while I was pregnant, J97 passed away unexpectedly. J97's parents, Linda and James, already knew I was pregnant when he passed away. At that time, we had done a prenatal paternity test. The loss of J97 was devastating for everyone, but especially for them. Sol is their first and only grandchild, and she became a ray of hope in a dark time, as they put it. They have two other daughters, Ruth, 37, and Lily, 27, but neither of them has children. Ruth has been trying to conceive with her husband for a long time, and Lily is single and has decided not to have children. J97's family lives in another state, except for Lily, who resides abroad. They have a family business in their home state, while I have my career and family here, in my city, where I live with Sol. Since she was born, we have had informal agreements about visitations. Usually, her grandparents and aunts visit her twice a month. James and Linda visit the most often, although Ruth also comes by occasionally. I appreciate their presence in Sol's life, but one recurring point of conflict in our relationship has always been the idea of Sol traveling to their state without me. They have a large property that has been in their family for over 100 years, and they want Sol to know that place and her heritage. While I understand the value of this, I have always made it clear that I would not allow them to travel with her unsupervised. Since Sol was born, I have taken her to visit their state 3 times, but this does not seem to be enough for them. Our relationship was cordial, though with some tension, especially with Linda, who sometimes intervened too much in how I raised Sol. However, things became more strained when I started my current relationship with Ted, a 34-year-old man I've been dating for almost a year. Ted has a 4-year-old daughter, Marie, who lives with him, and we do not live together. Despite this, Linda does not hide her disapproval of his constant presence in my home, which is not true since Ted and I both work a lot and we barely see each other 3 or 4 times a week. She has also criticized Marie having playdates with Sol or even sleeping over at my house. Even Ted's car parked in front of my house has been a subject of her comments. 2 weeks ago, I sent an email to Linda, James, and Ruth inviting them to a gathering that Ted and I were planning for Christmas Eve with our families and close friends. I also offered them the option to spend Christmas lunch with Sol if they preferred. The next day, Linda texted me saying they already had plans to take Sol to their home for Christmas. I told them this was not going to happen. I did not hear from her for 2 days until she called, saying she had given me time to cool down and be reasonable. When I asked what she meant, she claimed they have rights over Sol and had waited long enough to bring her home for Christmas. She argued that now that Sol is older, she can travel without me. I responded that this had never been discussed and that I would not allow them to take my daughter without consulting me first. Linda replied that this call was the discussion before the trip. I couldn't help but laugh and told her she was being delusional. The conversation quickly became hostile. Linda accused me of trying to replace J97 in Sol's life. In turn, I said some hurtful things about how J97 never even got to meet his daughter. Linda hung up, but James later called to try to reason with me. During our conversation, he accidentally mentioned that they had already purchased plane tickets for Sol 2 months ago without asking me. I made it clear that I would not let them walk all over me like that. James lost his temper and demanded that I apologize to Linda or they would take the matter to court. I did not back down and told him they were choosing to fight, not me. After some time without hearing from them, I was served legal papers. They had filed a lawsuit for custody of Sol, claiming that I am an unfit mother. I already have a lawyer, whom I had consulted before our phone argument, and she assured me that they have almost no chance of winning custody. At best, they could achieve a visitation arrangement, but I am still worried about the possibility of a prolonged legal battle. People around me are divided. Some think I did nothing wrong by setting boundaries, while others believe I was petty to start a conflict with my daughter's grandparents when I could have allowed them to travel with her for Christmas, knowing they are good grandparents who would take good care of her. Am I the bad one in this situation? Clarifications needed to understand the situation better. How do Linda and James know details about my life, like Ted's car or Marie's playdates? They live in another state, but visit quite often. They come at least twice a month to see Sol and usually stop by my house to pick her up or drop her off after outings. During one of these visits, Linda noticed Ted's car parked in my driveway. I live in a gated community where this kind of parking is not allowed unless it's the homeowner's car. The first time Linda saw Ted's car, she asked if I was going to call security to have it towed. I said no because it was Ted's car. Her disapproval was evident. Additionally, they used to FaceTime Saul 3 times a week. During these calls, they learned about some of her play dates and sleepovers with Marie. Sometimes they called when Marie was still at my house with Sol and saw them together, drawing their own conclusions. Did they expect my toddler to travel alone on a plane? No, that was not their plan. Maybe I didn't explain it well initially. James said they would travel to my city, take Saul on the plane to their state, and bring her back after a week. She was never supposed to travel alone, but this does not change my stance. The idea of my daughter being far from me, unsupervised, is something I simply cannot accept. Do I believe they would kidnap my daughter? I'm not sure, but some of their recent behaviors and comments have made me paranoid. James claimed they already purchased return tickets for Saul, but I honestly cannot trust his word without concrete proof. At this point, their word means nothing to me. Do I still have contact with them? No, I've decided to cut all direct communication. My lawyer advised me to suspend all visits and FaceTime calls between them and Saul. Now, any communication with my daughter's grandparents goes exclusively through our lawyers. I haven't blocked them on my phone, but I won't answer any calls from them. If they text or email me, I forward it directly to my lawyer. Recently, I've been busy preparing a proof binder documenting every little detail of our interactions. Lastly, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Please don't worry too much. Saul and I live in a very secure community with cameras and armed security. No one is going to take her from me. After receiving the notification of the lawsuit from J97's family, my mind was filled with uncertainty and anguish. Even though I had already spoken with my lawyer and knew they had little chance of obtaining custody, I couldn't shake the heavy feeling in my chest. The idea of having to legally fight for my own daughter was something I never imagined I'd have to face. While going through old documents, trying to organize my evidence file, I came across something I didn't expect, a letter written by J97. It was a letter he had sent me during the early months of my pregnancy. By that time, our relationship was no longer romantic, but we still had deep conversations about how we would face Saul's arrival together. I opened the letter with trembling hands, and as I read, a wave of emotions washed over me. J97's words were clear and full of hope. On paper, he described how he envisioned our life raising Saul, how he planned to be present at every stage of her life, even from a distance. Despite the complications of our situation, he wanted to be a committed father and ensure that our daughter always felt loved and protected. There was one particular phrase that resonated deeply with me. Even if we are not together as a couple, I will always be here for you and for our daughter. I want her to know from day one that she has a father who loves her deeply. These words, written with the warmth and sincerity that defined J97, filled me with a strength I hadn't felt in days. It was as if, wherever he was reminding me that I wasn't alone in this fight. The letter also mentioned his desire to maintain a cordial relationship with his family, but made it clear that the primary decisions regarding Saul's upbringing would rest with me. This confirmed something I already knew in my heart. J97 trusted me as a mother and as the primary caretaker of our daughter. Knowing that he had expressed his will this way gave me the certainty that I was doing the right thing by setting boundaries with his family. With the letter in hand, I called my lawyer to inform her about this discovery. She recommended keeping it as part of our legal file. Although the letter doesn't hold direct legal weight, it could be an important piece to demonstrate J97's intentions regarding Saul's upbringing. On a personal level, it gave me a sense of purpose and clarity that I hadn't felt since this conflict began. That night, after putting Saul to bed, I sat on the couch and allowed myself to cry. But this time, they weren't tears of sadness or despair. They were tears of relief and determination. I knew the road ahead would be tough, but I also knew I was ready to face anything for my daughter's well-being. Soul deserves to grow up in an environment full of love and stability, and I will do everything in my power to protect that. Sometimes, in the darkest moments, we find small lights to guide us. For me, this letter from J97 was that light. It not only reminded me of who he was, but also of who I am. A mother determined to do what's best for her daughter, no matter the obstacles. 2 weeks have passed since I received the notification of the lawsuit, and although I've been preparing with my lawyer's help, the days have not been easy. Every time I think about what J97's family is trying to do, I feel a mix of indignation and exhaustion. However, what I recently discovered took my anger to another level. While reviewing documents and evidence for the case, my lawyer showed me information that J97's family had submitted in their claim. That's when I realized something alarming. They had been collecting personal details about my life, my relationship with Ted, and even our daily routines. This discovery left me stunned and deeply unsettled. Apparently, they hadn't just been observing from afar during their visits with Saul. They had hired someone to keep them informed. According to my lawyer, the documents included details like how often Ted visited my house, what time he arrived and left, and even who picked Saul up from daycare. They also mentioned irrelevant things such as which days my car wasn't at home or how many times Marie, Ted's daughter, stayed overnight at our house. All of this information felt completely unnecessary and a blatant invasion of my privacy. What hurt me the most was realizing that they had tried to frame this information as evidence that I was a distracted mother or that I prioritized my relationship with Ted over Saul's well-being. Nothing could be further from the truth. My relationship with Ted has always been healthy and respectful. Both girls share a wonderful bond, and I always put Saul's needs first. The fact that they're attempting to weaponize our everyday lives against me is simply despicable. Additionally, my lawyer showed me screenshots of posts on social media and local forums where Linda, J97's mother, had made comments about me and Ted. While she never mentioned our names directly, the details were too specific not to know who she was talking about. This made me feel exposed in a way I hadn't anticipated. I've always tried to keep a low profile and protect my personal life, but now I feel like that boundary has been completely violated. The night I found out about all this, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, replaying every moment in my mind when they might have been watching me without my knowledge. I even started doubting the people around me, wondering if someone had been feeding them information. It was a vulnerability I had never experienced before. However, this discovery didn't just make me angry. It gave me even more reasons to keep fighting, not only for Saul, but also for my privacy and my right to live without being constantly monitored or judged. The next day, my lawyer and I filed a countersuit for harassment and invasion of privacy. I won't allow them to keep crossing these boundaries. I've also reinforced security measures at home. I spoke with my community's security team to ensure any unfamiliar individuals are closely monitored, and I've altered my daily routines to make them less predictable. Although it pains me to have to take these steps, I know they're necessary to protect my family. These past few days have been absolute chaos. Between meetings with my lawyer, taking care of Saul, and trying to stay calm, I feel like I can barely breathe. This whole lawsuit is draining so much of my energy, but something happened this week that, although unexpected, brought me a bit of relief. Ruth, J97's older sister, called me. It was a total surprise because, although we've always had a cordial relationship, she's not someone I talk to regularly. I thought maybe she was calling to support me or to try to mediate in all this, but I really didn't know what to expect. She started by saying that she knew about the lawsuit and wanted to speak with me directly. She told me she didn't agree with her parents' decision to take this matter to court. According to her, she understands Linda and James's pain and desperation, but she believes this is not what her brother would have wanted. J97 always spoke of you as a good mother, she said, and those words deeply moved me. Ruth explained that she had tried to talk to her parents, but they didn't want to listen to reason. She told me that her mother, especially, is very convinced that this is the best thing for Saul, even though it clearly isn't. This whole thing is a mess, and the only thing they're achieving is making the situation worse, she said with a tone of resignation. Ruth also mentioned that her parents don't realize that by insisting on this, they could end up losing even the visitation they currently have. What impacted me the most was when she said that if necessary, she was willing to testify on my behalf. You've always taken good care of Saul, she told me, and I know everything you do is for her well-being. My parents are wrong about this, and I want you to know that. When I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was relieved to know that someone in that family supported me, but on the other hand, I couldn't help but feel sadness for Ruth. It's clear she's caught in the middle of all this, and it can't be easy for her to go against her own parents. Later, I spoke to my lawyer about the call. She told me that if Ruth is truly willing to support me, her testimony could be valuable. However, she also cautioned me not to rely too heavily on it, as family dynamics can change at any moment, especially in such tense situations. Despite everything, I felt a small spark of hope. Moments like that have been rare lately. Knowing that someone else sees the truth and recognizes that I've always acted in Saul's best interest gives me the strength to keep moving forward. This fight isn't just for me. It's for my daughter and her right to grow up in a stable, loving environment. Last week, I decided to follow a piece of advice I received during a therapy session: to start keeping a journal. At first, I have to admit, it felt a bit strange. With everything going on, I couldn't quite understand how something as simple as writing could help me deal with the mountain of emotions I've been carrying. But my therapist insisted that putting my thoughts and feelings down on paper could be a powerful tool to ease anxiety and clear my mind. So, one night after Saul had fallen asleep, I grabbed an old notebook I had stored away and sat down at the dining table. At first, I felt a little silly. I didn't know where to begin and kept wondering if this would actually make any sense. But slowly, the words started to flow. I wrote about my fears, my frustrations, and also about the small moments of joy I still managed to find in my daily life, especially with Soul. The process turned out to be more freeing than I had expected. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had a safe space to be completely honest with myself without the fear of judgment. Writing about the legal situation, the tension with J97's family, and my own insecurities as a mother helped me see things from a different perspective. I realized that even though the situation is overwhelming, I have been doing everything I can to protect my daughter and provide her with a stable life. One of the things I wrote about was how much I worry about the emotional impact this legal battle might have on Saul in the future. Although she's too young to understand what's happening now, I can't help but wonder how she'll feel when she's older and learns about this part of her story. I also reflected on how I can manage my own emotions to ensure they don't spill over onto her. Soul deserves a mother who is strong and calm, even when I feel like a storm is raging inside me. Besides writing about how difficult this process has been, I also focused on the things I'm grateful for. For instance, having a support system, even a small one, has been crucial. My friends and my therapist have reminded me that I'm not alone, and that gives me strength. I also wrote about the simple but beautiful moments I share with Soul, like when we paint together, laugh while I read her favorite stories, or when I watch her sleep so peacefully, peace that feels unattainable for me right now. Now, writing in my journal has become a daily habit. I don't always write a lot, but even a few lines help me process my feelings and mentally prepare for whatever comes next. My therapist was right. This small exercise has given me a way to stay grounded and not let negative emotions take control. I know the road ahead won't be easy. J97's family keeps pushing, and every day seems to bring new challenges. But now I feel like I have a place where I can vent and recharge emotionally. This journal, simple as it is, has become a reminder that I'm moving forward, one step at a time, and that at the end of the day, I'm doing all of this for Saul's well being and our peace. I'll keep writing and facing each day with the best attitude I can. I may not have all the answers, but I'm learning to trust myself and the decisions I'm making to protect my daughter. For now, that's enough. It's been weeks since I started sharing my story, and I want to deeply thank everyone for the support and words of encouragement I've received from so many people. During this time, I've felt that I'm not alone in this battle and that there are those who understand how difficult it is to be in a situation like this. A few days ago, something unexpected happened that once again shook my peace. I received an anonymous call while I was home with Saul. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but the voice on the other end of the line left me on high alert. The person, whose identity I couldn't recognize, spoke in a serious and direct tone. They warned me that J97's family might be planning something to try to get close to Saul in a sneaky way, ignoring the boundaries I've already set. I must confess that upon hearing those words, I felt a mix of fear and frustration. Although I can't confirm the truth of the warning, I can't ignore the fact that this situation has escalated to a point where my trust in them is practically non existent. After hanging up, I sat down for a moment to try to process what I had just heard. I don't want to live in paranoia, but I also can't afford to be naive when it comes to my daughter's safety. I immediately informed my lawyer about the call and asked for her advice on the steps to take. She recommended that I document everything and also report the incident to the police, which I did the next day. While there's no concrete evidence that J97's family is plotting something, having this type of information recorded is essential in case anything happens. Additionally, I spoke with the security staff in the community where we live. They have reinforced surveillance measures around my house and committed to staying alert to any suspicious activity. I've also reviewed the security cameras in my home and updated the systems to ensure everything is working correctly. For now, these measures give me a little peace of mind, but I can't help feeling constantly on guard. This experience has made me reflect on how vulnerable a single mother can be in situations like this. Not only are we fighting to protect our children, but we're also struggling to maintain our emotional stability while facing legal, family, and in this case, even potential external threats. It's an enormous weight, but it's also a reminder of how important it is to always stay alert and prepared. To everyone who has followed my story, I want to thank you again. Your messages and comments have given me strength in moments when it felt like I couldn't go on. Although the situation is still unresolved, I'm doing everything in my power to ensure that Sol is safe and grows up in an environment filled with love and security. I'll continue to share updates as this process progresses. For now, all I can do is remain firm and trust that the decisions I'm making are the best for my daughter. Thank you for being with me on this journey and for being a source of support in the midst of this storm.